So today I would like to show you that virtual reality is a great tool to hack your mind. And we will see that there are 3 different kinds of illusions, and if you combine them appropriately, can make the big difference between a great immersive experience and an immense failure. So my mind was hacked by virtual reality the first time almost 25 years ago. So as a young teenager, I went to Berlin and attended there or visited an amusement park called the Cyberspace Cafe. And what I saw there was basically the first commercially available VR games ever at that time. So there were some machines by W Industry, later called Virtuality, and I could actually play my first VR game. This was Dactyl Nightmare, as illustrated here in the video. So I'm curious, how many of you have played this game before? So just 2, 3 people. So as you can see in this game, we have this checkerboard platforms in which you can move around. You had a gun, you had to shoot some dragons which tried to catch you, and you could collaborate with a different player, or you can shoot other players as well. And despite the really low quality of what you saw there, so really low resolution, high latency, inaccurate tracking, and so on, I was really blown away by this experience. I really had the illusion of being there in the surreal, Escher-like world. I really had the illusion that the dragon tries to catch me, and I certainly had the illusion that my friend was there with me. It took a couple of years until I got into research and kind of understand what was really going on there. So when we talk about virtual reality today, we talk about immersive technology. And this immersive technology allows us to dive into a computer-generated world with all our senses. Not only the visual sense and the auditory sense, but also our inner body senses. So while we move, we can explore the environment. And it has been shown that this immersive technology tends to increase our sense of presence, which means our sense of believing that we are in this computer-generated world. But the sense of presence has multiple dimensions, and I would briefly summarize the 3 most important here. Sorry for the formula here, the TEDx talk, so I was heard. I was not allowed to use any formulas, but this is the only formula I show to you. So for those of you who haven't studied mathematics or Greek symbols, it just means that for presence, it's essential to sum up P, Psi, and Sigma. And what I mean by that, I will explain in a second. So the first one, P, is an acronym for place illusion. And this refers to the illusion that you really believe that you are in this place that you are seeing. So you don on a head-mounted display, for example, and then you are in this virtual environment. And for example, we can put you on a virtual pit, on a high skyscraper. You don on the HMD and you see that, and you really have the illusion that you are there. And we can actually measure that. So you will see that you have an increased heart rate, that you begin to sweat. But this is actually not enough for these illusions. It's not enough that you just have the feeling of being there. And this brings us to the next important point, which is Psi, plausibility illusion. And this refers to the illusion that you really believe that the events which happen in virtual reality actually occur. So who of you is afraid of spiders? A couple? So if we put you in a virtual reality experience and you see some virtual spiders, as this human here, which go towards your hand, you should really have this illusion that this is happening to you at this point. And we will see how for what we can use it. But again, just having this place illusion and plausibility illusion is not enough for a great experience. And like all technologies that we have today, only those get successful which really help users and humans to get connected to each other. Which brings us to the next important dimension of presence, which is social presence, which refers to the sense of being there with another person in this world. And I just want to show you a short clip from Oculus Connect this year in which you can see Mark Zuckerberg using virtual reality together with some colleagues. So what you see in the next second is his view here. You see a 360 video of the surrounding, and you see 2 avatar representations which represent his co-workers, which are somewhere else on Earth at that point. And they are just here together in this virtual reality setup, and they can start to communicate to each other. And in the following, they experience some different kind of virtual experiences. And you can see that all these experiences kind of provide a sense of place illusion. So you have really the illusion here, you are in the ocean, or you are on Mars, or you are in the living room of Mark Zuckerberg, or in an office space at Facebook. You also have plausibility illusion, so you really think that the shark is diving to you. And of course, you have social presence while really believing that you are here together with your friends, family and beloved ones, or co-workers. And all the applications which have enormous potential for virtual reality, called killer applications, will benefit from the combination of place illusion, plausibility illusion, and social presence. For example, playing a game, I want to have the illusion that I'm there with my friends, and that the events are really happening there. So, of course, virtual reality is not a new thing. It's actually quite old and dates back to some of the pioneering work from the 60s. So I'm curious, how many of you know this person? Could you please raise your hand? So this is Ivan Sutherland, who is one of the creators of computer graphics. So whenever you see graphics today, it dates back to some of his work. And in 1965, he wrote a wonderful essay called The Ultimate Display. And there he speculated what an ideal, optimal, ultimate computer display would look like. And he concluded that, of course, such a display would be a room within which the computer can control the existence of matter. And he gave some examples. So he said a chair displayed in such a room would be good enough to sit in. Handcuffs would be confining, and a bullet would be fatal. And I was always wondering who wants to be in such an ultimate display in which handcuffs, bullets, and these things are items of the daily agenda. But he also wrote that with appropriate programming, such a display could literally be the wonderland into which Alice walked. So the ultimate display would be a computer-mediated reality which gets indistinguishable from the real world. And this notion of virtual reality has been used in science fiction literature and cinematography to question whether we truly know if our perceptions are real or not. And just 3 years after he wrote his wonderful essay, he was able to build the first augmented reality, virtual reality prototype. And what you see here is an original footage from that time in which Ivan Sutherland uses his first augmented reality display ever. And what you see here is him seeing a virtual cube on this transparent screen you will see in a second, and a lot of cables and electromechanical tracking is introduced there so that he's able to see a stereoscopic cube in space and just moving around and explore it in a very natural way. We know that technology advances exponentially. The interesting thing is Ivan Sutherland developed the first prototype at the end of the 60s. That was exactly the same time when the mouse was invented, or the graphical user interface, or the internet. And while this technology is vital today, and we cannot even thinking about living without it, virtual reality has not really made it until now. So we had the first hype in the 90s, but at that time, the major problem was that the technical milieu was not ready for virtual reality. So whenever you immerse somebody into a virtual reality environment, only what they could see was a couple of shaded polygons with really low field of view, really bad resolution, and inaccurate tracking. And the term VR is dead became a common narrative back at the time. And it became pretty clear that virtual reality is not the future, how humans would interact with computers back at that time. The real revolution came in a different form factor. Smartphones, just small enough to fit in your pocket. And the ironic thing is that all the resurgence, the rebirth of virtual reality is based on advancements which have been made in the smartphone market. Because if you take a look at today's head-mounted displays, all the technology which is available there is basically grounded on advancements from the smartphone technology, like the OLED screens, like inertial measurement units, gyroscope, and graphics performance. And today's ultimate display look like this. So how many of you have tried one of these displays? So after my talk, there's a chance in the back room to test the middle one here. As you can see by the specifications, these displays are still not ultimate. But you kind of, if you're using them, you get a glimpse of the future. You get a vision how these displays might look like just in a couple of years. And the hype is pretty much there now. So I just want to show you one example in which we try to solve a very exciting challenge, which is one of the goals of Ivan Sutherland, the wonderland into which Alice walked. So that basically means we want to explore a computer-generated environment in the most natural way. This is not by using a mouse or a keyboard or a touch display. It's just how we do it in the real world. And how do we do that? We just walk. We just walk through the environment. And to implement that is actually very simple in virtual reality. So you can just track all the motions and map that to a virtual world. The problem is that usually the virtual environment illustrated here is much larger than the space in which I can actually move around. So what actually we did is we did a couple of hacking your mind tricks actually by guiding users on circular arcs in the real world while they believe to walk straight in the virtual environment. And it turned out that I could hack all your minds by let you walk on a circle with a radius of 20 meters while you actually believe to walk straight in the virtual environment. And it's really cool to see how this research work, which is already quite old, called redirected walking, is now really applied in commercial products. So in Utah, there's a theme park called The Void, in which you can actually go with your friends and play like virtual laser tag. So you have an arena in which you can run around with your friends and have place illusion, you have plausibility illusion, and social presence, in which you can interact with some friends, and they use exactly the same concepts here. And this is now simply used in a game context, but you can easily use your imagination and think, what could you display in such worlds, and what could you experience together with your friends and your family or your colleagues, and really believing that this is a real place and that the events are really happening. So what will happen in the future? What will happen with the ultimate display in the future? We have seen it took 25 years from the first prototype to the first VR hype. Then it took 20 more years until the next VR hype. So you see the intervals are getting shorter, one typical thing about exponential advancement. So let's have a look maybe to 15 years. So what will happen in the next 15 years? The really nice thing about exponential advancement is that you can easily predict and extrapolate how computing performance will evaluate. So by this exponential advancement, we know approximately every 18 months computing performance will double. We know that in 15 years, actually, the machines that we will have available will be 1,000 times better than the machines that we have today. And this will be true for storage, this will be true for network bandwidth, and this will be true for resolution and so on. So all of these aspects will be 1,000 times better in the next 15 years. What does that mean? So certainly, we will have a new device or a new paradigm shift called smart glasses. And these smart glasses will be able to do both augmented reality as well as virtual reality. And we will certainly see how our current paradigm, like smartphones, will kind of disappear. And we will have this new area of smart glasses. And trust me, in 15 years, in 2030, we will laugh about how we walk today through the streets while having our face pointing downwards to our smartphones and walking like zombie smartphone users, smombies. We will also see how these glasses will go smaller and smaller and eventually collapse into something like contact lenses. And all big players today, Google, Samsung, Apple, Microsoft, they all filled their patents for such kind of displays. And we will also solve a very challenging task, which is we will solve the graphics Turing test. So how many of you have heard about the Turing test? So the twist is here, or the variant is here, that it's not about an artificial intelligence, it's about rendering a virtual object or an entire virtual environment from which I cannot tell if it's the reality or if it's virtual. And we have to do that in real time. So think about a computer game which I play and I cannot tell if this is like a video capture of the real world or if this is a computer game. So in order to be able to have this possibility to render and solve this test, it means we need like 1 petaflop of GPU performance. We are currently in the range of 1 to 10 teraflop. Having a factor of 1,000, this will be easily to be solved. And just to give you a notion what that means, being 1,000 times better in terms of visual quality. So when I finished school, I spent most of my time actually playing computer games. So Tomb Raider was one of the best games that you could play, and Lara Croft back at the time looked like this. Just 1.5 decades later, Lara Croft looks like this. So this is approximately an improvement of a factor 1,000. And you can easily extrapolate what that means being, again, 1,000 times better. And it gets really clear that we will have this situation that we see virtual objects, virtual environments, from which we cannot tell if they are real or not. And we will be together, maybe with wearing a smart glass, and I might see people like you, and I cannot tell at that point who of you is really here as a human being, who of you is just an avatar maybe, which is displayed on my smart glass, and actually you're somewhere else as a remote location, and who of you is actually just an agent, so somebody who's just here to filling the places, basically. And these improvements will have enormous effect on our society. And there must be some rules in which we kind of state, how do we want to live as humans in such a digital world? So for example, our lab came up with one rule called immersion must not be concealed. So whenever I want to know, I should be able to know what is real now and what is not. So far, it's really easy. I just take off the head-mounted display and then I can see. But assuming having like contact lenses, I cannot be sure about that. So we saw these kind of applications which will certainly benefit from immersive technology and the sense of presence. Today, VR is already used very effectively for these kind of applications, in which you have a place illusion, so you really believe you are there, in which you have plausibility illusion, you really believe that these spiders are real, and you have social presence, in which you can, for example, treat different kind of phobias, like fear of height, fear of spiders, or fear of public speaking. But I think one of the most important features that virtual reality can provide is this one, the ultimate empathy machine. So virtual reality allows, for example, to swap your gender, so you can experience what it is like to be a woman or a man. You can also switch your skin color and can experience what would it be to be belonging to a different ethnic group. Or what would it be to live in a camp in Syria as a refugee. And this kind of applications have the potential to change our view of ourselves, of others, as well as how we see the world. So in the 90s, they said VR is dead, and I'm pretty sure that, and I know that the situation is different today. The technical milieu is there, and it will just take like a very small number of years until we really have this new revolution of virtual reality, augmented reality, which will revolutionize the way how we live as humans in the digital world. Thank you so much.